So, speaking of body parts, right? Speaking of body parts, um, uh, one of the fascinating things about COVID is that it's forced all of us to have to focus on our health and have a deeper look into our into science and medicine and things of that nature. So, for us, it was quite an exciting stumble upon um, to come about this conversation about the regenerative capabilities in the science field about stem cells and potentially the ability to be able to grow new limbs. Miles Xavier, with no reference whatsoever to the previous conversation, if you had to grow a new limb, what limb would it be?
I'm a what do they call it? I'm a doomsday prepper, right? So in prepping for doomsday, I would be like, let me get an extra kidney. I need the extra liver. You know what I'm saying? Extra heart. I would be for sure trying to build up all the extra body parts. You dig me?
Now,
The
you see, that's
organs,
very
straight
interesting.
organs. That's what I'm going for.
I don't play with y'all. I build myself a new fist. Another fist. Three fists on y'all.
To fight or for like black power or
All three. One, black power. Two, to fight. To fight. But part of that regenerative limbs conversation leads into these first synthetic embryos that have been created, right? These synthetic embryos, and part of the reason of creating those synthetic embryos is said to be able to harvest new forms of organs and whatnot. So that immediately, for a lot of people, sparks up a whole lot of discussions around how ethical is it to have synthetic embryos? What does that mean? Do we have synthetic kids?
I'm not the person to answer these questions first and foremost. I think it's important to be vulnerable and powerful at the same time and say that, yo, like, I have more questions than answers with this one as well. But my gut reaction is if that being, when it grows up, has a full consciousness, then we have some very complicated questions ahead of us, right? And we already see what the Supreme Court doing. Everybody that the abortion folks gonna be on y'all ass about this. I don't know. I don't know how to take it, but I think we're getting into a space where the ways that we're playing with technology are yeah. I don't. It's like a reach our seeds our grasp type thing. You know what I mean? I'm don't know if we've thought through the ramifications of this or if we just playing with it in a way that just because we can. You know what I mean? So I'd be interested to learn more. What did you find out?
So, scientists at the Weizmann Institute in Israel found that stem cells from mice could be made to assemble into early embryo like structures with intestinal tract, the beginnings of a brain, and a beating heart, known as synthetic embryos because they are created without fertilized eggs. The living structures are expected in the near term to dive deeper understanding of how organs and tissues form during the development of natural embryos. But researchers believe the work could also reduce animal experimentation and ultimately pave the way for new sources of cells and tissues for human transplantation. So it does kind of look to move away from some of the traditional. Yo, this picture's hilarious, by the way. If you really look at what's
Yeah.
inside of these, is that a teardrop and then a bone? Let's go down. But if part of how the stem cells are being harvested right now obviously is within the natural production of embryos, and on one end you do have folks that are saying that the practices of being able to do that could lead us down a very nefarious path where we are essentially got women held up producing embryos just so we can take them and produce these stem cells, which is why this particular element would come through with a solution towards that. But it's hard not to think about it in the form of, say, like The Matrix or some of these other movies that we have seen where they're just growing folks in these vacuum tubes, and out pops Matt Damon looking like dude with his head bald out of some slimy goo.
Yeah, it's yeah. I actually love the way that you just ended that comment because it's how I feel about this whole conversation. Right, there are certain topics and like social questions that we don't have a space to talk about yet, And so we all are just kind of left to go with our gut feeling, like, because no amount of science, no amount of explaining to me like how synthetic the baby is, like if it, and I say baby, already probably messing up scientifically, right? It's probably embryo or fetus or whatever. But I think it is those emotional connections that my brain automatically makes that goes, nah, don't take the little baby's bone. You know what I'm saying? Don't take his little teardrops. We need he gonna need those. And yeah, there's an awkward question of what happens to the embryo once you've taken whatever you've taken from it. I think for anybody who sees that as a human life, it's going to be real hard. This is going to be a real hard question to swallow. And where's the appropriate place, especially for an adult, to like gain information for us to have conversations and decide how we feel about this? Or are we just gonna end up protesting in the streets about yet another issue like this?
It Another instance again where the research on this show forces us to view the line between technological development and an ethical morality line, and you've highlighted those ethical lines quite well. How far is too far with this embryo cultivation process? But then on the other side, there's also the reality of how many people are suffering from things such as kidney failure. So about 10% of the population in the US suffer from kidney failure. The average cost for those people is between $100,000 to $200,000, given the U.S. healthcare system. So the traditional the methods that are used now are way too expensive for people, and a huge percentage of people clearly suffer from these issues. So if there is a better way to be able to harvest these things, it makes you wonder, what is more important, the process of trying to develop a solution that can help the current people, or are the ethics that we pursue on that process a bit too far? And synthetic embryos, I think is important to note, does not mean babies like you say. That's not particularly what it is. It's tapping more so into the regenerative sciences that already exist within our functions. Livers do regenerate themselves. Anyone between the ages of 7 and 11, if you cut the end of your pinky, it can regrow itself. So there are those features. I'm fascinated in science, looking at the extents that we can take to take full advantage of this universe of an organism that we don't fully understand, really.
Yeah. And like, I appreciate what you're saying about the amount of people that it could help. Right. I think and it makes me think of the ways in which we already produce things that we don't really want to see how it's made. And we are able, like, look at hot dogs, right? It's an uncomfortable
Damn.
truth. So uncomfortable truth, right? You want to
Embryos
talk
are the hot dogs of science.
kinda, you know what I'm saying? Like, in a way that, yeah, I don't particularly want to be in the embryo shack. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I want to see that, but I would love and be deeply moved by a story about, or to have a family member that was, saved by this new scientific process. That's amazing. I'm sure there are people like literally praying for this right now to become an option. So from that perspective, I definitely see it. Um, yeah, it's a
Ex-
complicated one for sure.
Especially when you understand how complicated the body really is, right? For instance, if you do have heart surgery, you can't just take one heart out of somebody and put it into somebody else. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's a very particular process. Same thing with many body parts. You can't just take a body part out and fit it into the body. The body will actually fight that body part, almost trying to kill it, actually, which is why it's so very specific on on heart transplants and that type of thing, right? So this could almost be an insurance of sorts, where you take a piece of your body and maybe of your kids' bodies, and then grow these embryos as a just in case my eye pops out. Bloop, you can just, okay, that's too far. We found the line. Too far.
Nah, but that's low key how I opened the segment, right? By saying, like, if I could grow them, and I was thinking, I don't know, like on the beanstalk type, like I was walking into a garden and pick up a heart. You know what I'm saying? Out the out some lettuce looking like shrub, but uh, had to let that marinate, right? Had to let that sink in, but when you put it in terms of, like, yeah, an embryo, there is this like visceral reaction to it. Um, Dang, I forgot what I was gonna say after that. The visual got me too. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Intense visualization. Would you invest in something of this sort if the science had finally gotten to a place?
thank you. That's actually where I was going. No, I'm betting on 3D printers. You know what I'm saying? This is still icky. And I appreciate you breaking down the science. I appreciate it. But I think I'm gonna put my money on the 3D printers to get there. Print me a liver. I'll take it.
You see, there you have it, folks. Print Miles a liver is the name of this episode, or picking hearts like shrubs. Your viewer's choice. Hit the comments below with hearts like shrubs. print liver. It's up to you.
Hearts Like Shrub sounds like an A Boogie track.
Oh man. Oh man. Listen, man. This is what we give y'all. This is what you can expect. Definitely prioritize health. There's a whole lot of fascinating information around the different ways that we understand the body can work. I believe that the body is a universe unto itself. It wasn't until like the late 30s and the late 40s that we actually realized the bioelectrical capabilities that the body works in, which is to say that organs and the body actually communicate within themselves through electricity, and store information. Something fascinating is that moths, as they turn into butterflies, their brain liquefies. They liquefy within that cocoon, but can still hold memory.
Bruh. Yeah, I've taken a few things that liquefied my brain, but never never like that. I didn't come out a butterfly. For sure.
You were a fly though. You were a fly though. You were a fly. Hey man, this is the show that we give y'all. This is the show that we give y'all.